Welcome to the Fit Dad Nation podcast, forging strong fathers and raising a stronger generation. It's time to get up, man up, or shut up with your host, Steve Roy.
Hey guys, this is Steve Roy. I'm the host of the Fit Dad Nation podcast. Welcome to the show. Today I am speaking with Jordan Syatt. I'm really excited to talk to Jordan. He's a very successful fitness coach and online entrepreneur. He's a self-proclaimed Harry Potter nerd and coffee addict. And he also has the distinction of being Gary Vaynerchuk's personal strength and nutrition coach. And he travels the world with him. And in all honesty, I'm jealous of hell of that because I love me some Gary V. But Jordan, before we jump into your story, I just want to say a couple things. One, I want to say that typically I have dads on the show. It's Fit Dad Nation podcast. So you're someone that does things a little bit differently in this industry that's filled with followers and people who either just want to make a quick buck or they're just content regurgitating everybody else's opinions, ideas, and it's just not you. And you're so much more than do this exercise or eat this way. And I rarely actually see you try to sell anything. And looking at your posts, reading through some of your stuff, watching your videos, I see a lot of what you do is geared towards the mental side of things and the personal posts that you put up. And they just really hit hard on an emotional level. And it's so clear that you're a genuine guy. You really do want to see people succeed. So welcome. I really appreciate your time. I know you're insanely busy and that you get interview requests all the time. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. And you were incredibly kind and generous with that introduction. Thank you. It means a lot.
No, it's absolutely true. You're just kind of one of the good guys in this industry. And one of my biggest frustrations, I've been doing this for a long time, and I just despise the whole game that we think that we have to play, or so many people think they have to play to succeed online, especially in this super, super competitive niche of health and fitness. So I just love seeing someone that's out to do good, and that's definitely you. So, if you don't mind just taking a minute to share your story before we jump into some things that I really want to talk with you about.
Yeah, sure. So, basically, I got into fitness from wrestling. So I grew up wrestling. I started at 8 years old. And then by the time I got to high school as a freshman, I made varsity, but I had to cut a ton of weight. So I was cutting from 112 to 103. I was a really small kid. And every week I was cutting a lot of weight. So basically I had to figure out, okay, how do I cut weight and stay strong and improve? So long story short, I ended up applying to a gym about a town over from me. And I was very lucky because they accepted me and they were incredibly science-based, just really good people. It just happened to be by the grace of whoever's looking over me that they put me in this position of really, really incredible coaches. And from 14 years old, I was coaching people and really digging into scientific data and research and didn't spend too much time with the bro science, pseudoscience. And then they really sort of guided me through that from 14 to 18. I took a year off after high school, traveled for a year, went to Israel, came back after that year and went to college, really started competing in competitive powerlifting. And fortunately, I did very well there. Ended up training at Westside Barbell, which is essentially the world's strongest gym. Their weakest guy squats 800 pounds. So that's their chump. Yeah. And that's actually what the coach said to me. You have to be invited to go there. So I was invited there after my freshman year of college, trained there. And then basically while I was there, I started my website, not really knowing I was going to start a business. Basically, I just started writing on my website and posting videos. The owner of the gym was like, hey, man, he's all tatted up. His name's Louis Simmons, tatted head to toe. And he always wants to get the best information out, but he won't be invited to speak at schools or anything just because of the image that he has. So his big thing for me was, I want you to get all this information out to the public, teach people the right way to train. And so I just started writing, not even knowing that an online business could exist. It was mostly just in my college dorm room, posting articles, writing stuff. And through the years, people started to ask me to write their programs. And I did it for free because I didn't know PayPal existed. I didn't even think about it. And then over time, I got a little bit more entrepreneurial. And by the time I graduated college, I had an online business. And I didn't really tell anybody. My mom had no idea what I was doing. So when I graduated, she was like, all right, you gotta get a job. And I was like, I don't really think I need one. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's ridiculous. And I told her what was going on. And she sort of flipped out. And then I could work on my computer. So I ended up moving to Israel and I love it there. So then I was there for a while until I got word from Gary Vaynerchuk that I had an opportunity to come train him and be his coach in New York, and flew to New York, got the job, and that's where I'm living right now. I live in New York and coach Gary and do my online stuff.
Wow. I'm sure there's a pretty cool story in there about how you ended up hooking up with Gary. And I'm sure it's probably annoying as shit for you to get constantly harassed about Gary. But I mean, the guy's a machine. I mean, I love his work. He's obviously everywhere. So I'm curious. I mean, first off, because I'm not going to talk about this too much, because I'm probably tired of talking about it, but what's it like being responsible? I mean, you are his guy, right? So you travel the world with him. And from what I understand, you're responsible not only for just training him and working around his schedule, but you're tracking down all of his meals. You're finding the right things for him at the right times. And it seems like a lot of stress. I mean, as cool as it is, it seems like it's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders to make sure he's getting what he needs.
Yeah, I think the first month was one of the hardest months I've ever had in my life. The first 3 to 5 months were brutal. After that, I sort of got into a schedule. And really, the hardest part wasn't necessarily doing what I had to for Gary. The hardest part was adjusting my life, my business that I'd already built, and then adjusting how I was going to, which I literally, from the time I was 21 to the time I started working with Gary when I was 25, turned 26, and then sort of just changing everything, because I never really had to work for anybody really before for a long time. And my entire life went from doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, to, okay, everything revolves around him and his schedule. And I travel with him 7 days a week. It's a 7-day-a-week job. It's not like a 9 to 5. Basically, it's whenever he needs you, you're there. It doesn't matter if he's flying to Los Angeles or Chattanooga, Tennessee, or Hong Kong, you're going with him. It was definitely a huge learning curve. But just like anything, just sort of like counting calories. Like when you first start doing it, you're like, oh my God, this is taking forever. Like you have to Google everything. You're weighing it, you're measuring it. And then after several months, you start to remember things. You understand where things are, what they're going to be, how big they are, all like the tricks and whatever. And over time, it gets easier. But yeah, it's a big learning curve.
Wow. So what's the education like? You guys obviously probably have become friends. I would think, and I'm just speculating here, but he's not hooking you up with insider tips that's responsible for why you're so successful, especially online. I would think you probably get that a lot. Oh, you're Gary's coach. I'm sure he helps you, and that's why you have so many followers on blah, blah, blah. But I'm guessing maybe he gives you some tough love and says, get off your ass and do it yourself.
It's interesting. I mean, he's definitely helped me a lot. I think probably the best way to describe it, and Gary and I, and actually his old coach, Mike, we've all spoken about this together. It's not so much that he gives insider tips. Like he hasn't. Mm-hmm. There are no insider tips. Literally everything he tells me he's said in his content. The difference is, and really I'll remember vividly this conversation forever. I remember just getting off a plane one time with him, D-Rock, and myself. I just worked the whole plane ride, and it wasn't odd or unusual at that time, but he just looked at me and he said, how different is your work ethic now versus before? And keeping in mind, before I started with him, I had a successful online coaching business. I was doing much better than most. Mm-hmm. Basically, the major difference has been how hard I work and how efficient I'm with work in terms of not procrastinating, not waiting. Before Gary, I was still working very hard, working more than 40 hours a week for sure. But I was taking more downtime and more leeway and not really going out of my way to produce as much content, even though I had been writing content literally every day since I was 21 years old, but it wasn't as much. And the biggest conversation that really brought it to light was that when I was I work double, triple as hard as I do when I'm around him versus when I didn't. And that's really the biggest thing. It's not that he's giving me a secret tip or hack. It's that I was already working more than 40 hours a week. And now I look back on what I was doing and I realize, holy shit, I could have done way more. So now I just realized I was not working as hard as I could have. And that was brought to light by being around him, because people don't realize how hard he actually works and how much he actually goes. So when you're around that, you're sort of well, I don't really have an excuse. I might as well go. And so now every second that I can, I'm doing something. Like before we got on the call, you're so you have downtime? I'm surprised you're cooking bacon. It's well, I'm cooking bacon because I'm on this call. If I wasn't on this call, I would be doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, his whole business is built on hustle, and I'm sure if I matched my schedule up against yours, I'd feel like a lazy piece of crap. So yeah, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome. So in reading your stuff, I mean, Looks like, you're delivering 100 jabs before you ever consider throwing that right hook, as Gary says. And I just got to say, I love seeing that refreshing angle to the business because it's just so filled with people trying to pitch and look at me and look at my abs. And that's just not something that I believe in. And it's so great to see someone that has a lot of online presence and there's a lot of people watching you. And so you certainly could start throwing up, buy my $20 ebook or whatever and make millions of dollars probably doing that, but it's not right. And so I have a lot of respect for you in that respect.
Thanks, man. It's funny. I wouldn't even say it's not right to do that. I think that there are people who can do it in a way that's good. And essentially the way that's good is making sure that what they provide is really good value. And if someone buys their $20 ebook, that they're actually getting an ebook that is based on good science and it's practical and applicable and it's not like just selling hokey supplements and it's not like plagiarized. And it's good. I think that's a good thing and people can do that for sure. The area where I think it can be bad is if it's bad science, if it's sort of just done to make a quick buck and not actually provide value. And the reason I don't do it is mostly just because it doesn't feel good to me. And that's really, I think, where the most important part lies. Like, I'm just at a point in my life, which it very well could change, where I've realized that going out of my way to sell consistently doesn't make me feel good. Not because selling is bad and not because selling an ebook is bad. It's just because when I go out of my way to sell something, I never like it. It's not the favorite part of my job. The favorite part of my job is going into my comments and helping people or answering DMs or answering emails that questions people. That just makes me feel good. Now, I obviously have to sell to make a living, and I do. But what I've found is the more that I give without asking, the more people will come to me. And I think it takes longer to do that. I think it takes longer to build up a client base. And like for my monthly membership, which is it's my inner circle, which is like $24.99 a month, and I could charge way more for it. But people come to me for that because they want to support me rather than me going out of my way to try and sell them on it. And I think that allows me to support myself while feeling better rather than trying to sell if I don't even really like the feeling of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the exact same way. I run my business on what makes me feel good, and I've really struggled with it. I've been doing this online for about 3.5 years, but total I've been coaching for 20 years. But yeah, I really struggle with that. I hired guys, paid them thousands of dollars. They said, you have to do it this way, sell this way, hard sell. And I never felt good about it. I mean, sure, I made money, but I didn't feel good about it. So I've really transitioned my business, even in the last few months, to deliver way more value so I can help more dads. My business is based around middle-aged dads or so. And so it's just a niche that I love and being a dad myself, and I'm 46. So I've gone through a ton of struggles myself on a number of different levels. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's amazing, man. And like, that's the best part because it doesn't matter. Like you can make $20,000 more a month, but if you're going to make that much more money and that creates a level of anxiety or distaste for your job, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. You probably don't know my story, but I left a career of almost 12 years in finance. I worked for one of the largest brokerage firms in the country, and I was making plenty of money. I had a great office, the view, all that stuff, but I was miserable. And so I left it after I got separated 5 years ago, and I took a massive pay cut, and I went to go run a small gym. But I got up in the morning and I hustled for 16 hours a day to make enough money, but I loved it. I mean, that life's too short not to, I mean, too many people are miserable.
It really is, man. No one is going to be 95 years old, like lying in there the last few years of their life, like looking back and being like, wow, I'm really glad I stayed in that job that I hated to make more money that I didn't even use.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I feel very strongly about that, but let me ask you this. So this is kind of switching gears a little bit, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been watching your stuff on Instagram for a while, and it seems like that most of the people that comment, especially the positive comments, are women. So I know that men are less likely to share, and some of the more negative comments that I've seen on some of your stuff come from men. And it's basically because, the egos. You touch on emotional stuff. You're very personal, like posting a gym selfie with ass sweat. Some guys are like, oh, that's lame. You lost credibility, whatever. So my question is, my audience is entirely comprised of men. And the struggle is, breaking down those walls so you can reach them on a deeper level to really facilitate the change, because it doesn't lie in here, do this workout. It's breaking down and getting into their why they really want to do it, what's holding them back. But it's hard because most men, not all, but most men have egos, right? It's just how we're wired. And we don't want to let our defenses down and be open to a post like you post that's very emotional, where if you're open to it, you say, holy shit, man, that's something. I mean, and then you could think about it and you can make some changes. But how do you deal with the men that are your clients that you're going to hit that wall, and you're a guy that reaches on that level, that deep level? And I think for you to be effective, that, you use that strength well. So how do you go about that?
Man, it's a good question, and it changes per person and per client. It's very interesting because I've always been like a really goofy kid, and I've always been lucky in that I've been pretty good at expressing how I'm feeling and my emotions and getting it across. I think a lot of guys really struggle with it. And it's not because they don't know how, it's because they feel very uncomfortable expressing their emotion. And it can be for many reasons, because it's funny, we hear a lot about the stresses and the perceptions that society puts on women. We don't hear as much about what it does on men. And it's equally as important. And the reality is, a lot of times men are told that they shouldn't be expressing their emotions. They should just be like the alpha male. They should be able to like take everything. And it puts us in a position where it's a sort of like a double-edged sword, because on one hand, people tell us, oh, we want you to express your emotions. We want you to like tell us, but also like a man doesn't do that either. So it's difficult. And one of the reasons that I go out of my way to really show that in public is because I want men to see that it's okay. And then I also want them to see that like I have 5 world records and I'm a strong dude. And like I can also post a picture of my ass sweat. And then I can also say, hey, by the way, I had struggles with eating. And like I post a lot of that on purpose. And you're right, most of the people who comment relating to it are women. But a lot of the messages that I get are from men who are like, wow, that hit home with me. I didn't like know that other people struggled with that. And in private, a lot of the men reach out to me saying things like that. And basically, I just try and facilitate it. And I talk to them, and I never try and force it out of anyone. A lot of times it's just asking questions like, cool, like, tell me more about that. Or like, what'd you think about that? Or like, even something like, how's everything going with your nutrition? Like, give me a breakdown. Like, how are you feeling with your nutrition? Because a lot of times, generally, if I get an email from clients, the longer emails will tend to be from women who are explaining how they're feeling, like what's going on with it, because that's sort of they just dive right into it. The men will usually be along the lines of, hey, it's good, thanks. And I'll be like, well, tell me what's going on. Like, how are you doing after work with your nutrition? They'll be like, it's good. Like, sometimes a little bit hungry and I eat too much, but overall good. All right, well, like, what do you mean you eat too much? And like, well, sometimes I'm gonna hit my calories, but then I sort of lose control. And then like after talking a little bit and they feel like it's okay, then they'll sort of let you in, but they're less likely to go out of their way to tell you what's going on for any number of reasons. You sort of have to try and dig a little bit and let them know, hey, it's okay. Like, tell me what's going on. That's what I'm here for. Like, tell me, talk to me. What's up? Talk to me. Okay, cool. And it's like, you just gotta like work a little bit more for it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, I mean, that's something that I struggle with. And I think one of the reasons why parts of my business have been more successful than others is I do a lot of private Facebook groups. And like you said, men are more willing to share in private when they're around other men or a smaller group versus on a public page. It's pretty tough to get that. But yeah, I was just curious since, my business is all men. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I have a public group in my inner circle Facebook group and more women than men. But it's interesting, as more women express more vulnerability, more men have as well, which has been very interesting to see. And actually, what really happened was more women were doing it. One man did it, and then the rest have started. It's been very much like as soon as one did it, it was like, okay, it's okay. And then like more and more go. And it's like, it just took that one for them to be like, oh, cool, like that's all right. And so that's sort of where when you're talking to a male client, a lot of times it's just sort of letting them know, hey, by the way, like this is okay. It's totally normal. And then they sort of dive right into it. Again, with everyone, it's different, but sometimes it's just like letting them know that it's cool, that it's like it's cool to talk about it and it's okay to talk about it, that where they can really get involved.
Sure. And that kind of leads into what I wanted to ask you next is when you ask somebody, hey, what are your goals? Typically there's surface answers, right? Oh, I really want to lose 30 pounds around my midsection. It's all surface stuff. So one thing you said is you talk about when someone says, I'll be happy when, or I'll love myself when. And it's always, if I can lose this 30 pounds, it'll be great. Or if I can clean up my diet, it'll be great. Or if I can do this, it'll be great. And your point is, it's not how it works, right? If you don't love yourself at 250 pounds, why would you love yourself at 220 pounds? I mean, I think that's profoundly important to understand the reasoning behind that.
For sure. I mean, I literally just got an email today from someone who said something to the effect of, hey, I'm really struggling at my worst point. I got all the way up to 200 pounds. Now I'm down to 150 pounds, but I still look at my body with the same distaste along those same lines. And it's one of those things where I can talk about it all I want. I could say, hey, listen, you're not going to like yourself anymore when you weigh less or when you do this, but it doesn't mean anything until they actually go through it. And it's one of those things that you really do just have to learn by experience, because it's always easier to be like, well, no. Like if I lose weight, I will definitely be happier because I'll look better and yada, yada. But the way that I always explain this to people is, have you ever looked back at a picture of yourself from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and be like, damn, I looked good then. Holy shit. I can't believe how good I looked. And then I would give anything to be back like that. But then if you think back to when that picture was taken, did you feel that same way about yourself? Did you feel wow, I look so good right now? Probably not. Usually in the moment, you think, oh man, you think back to your biggest insecurities. Maybe my face is chubby or my gut is big or whatever it is. And very rarely do we ever think back to any moment in our life where we thought, wow, I look fantastic now in this moment. And when you can really let that sink in, that's when they can start to say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And instead of necessarily focusing only on the weight loss, more for me is trying to encourage the performance-based goals. So whether it's getting stronger, feeling better, more mobile, having more energy, more of a tangible thing rather than necessarily just solely by weight loss, which is just so fickle. Usually focusing more on the performance side will yield better results, not only physically and aesthetically, but also mentally and emotionally.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. I know you talk a great deal about weight loss or really fat loss. And you talk about patience, and in a world filled with, we want something here and now, we want it immediately. We're fascinated with the shiny object syndrome. And that's why quick and easy sells, and potions and pills and all that stuff sells like crazy, because people want a quick fix, and you are the anti-quick fix guy. And I love it. So how do you change that other than your education that you're doing? I mean, you're educating people every day with your posts about it, beating them down, saying, listen, there is no shortcut. Stop looking for the shortcut. And something that I believe in as well, strongly. So what do you do with your clients? Because I've had clients I've trained for years, and they'll come to me and say, I just signed up for a keto diet. I just joined Drew, whatever his name is. I forgot his last name. The guy that does the fit to fat to fit. I just bought his program. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? We've been talking about this for 2 years, and you just paid this guy $100, and now all of a sudden you want to do keto. I'm like, what? And everybody falls victim to this stuff. I mean, it's just it blows my mind. I was like, what? So what do you do? I mean, you have people, I'm sure, all the time that are like, I want to try this. I want to do this. Does keto work? Can we do this? Can we try this? Is paleo okay? How about vegan or whatever? So you just beat them over the head and say, stop. There's nothing there. How do you go about that with your personal clients?
It's a really good question. And it does depend on the client. It depends on how long I've worked with them and how well I know them. But I just had an example like this recently. Been working with this she's a great woman for almost 2 years now. She's done incredibly well. She's lost a lot of weight. She's maintained it. She's kept it off. And then in the last, I'd say 60 to 75 days, she was moving. There was a lot of craziness with her kids, 3 kids, moving homes, yada, yada, and gained a couple pounds back, nothing crazy at all. And it was all under control. But when it was finally all settled, she came back and she was like, hey, I want to do a rapid fat loss protocol. And I was like, abso-fucking-lutely not. No, not because they're bad. And I think in the right situations, they can be used very well and very strategically and effectively. But what I said, I was like, listen, you're feeling anxious because you've gained a couple pounds and you want to do whatever you can to lose it as quickly as possible because you feel like that's going to be your best bet. And I said, absolutely not. You can earn the right to do one if you stick to your sustainable guidelines for 90 days straight, 100%. But until you earn the right to do that, you can't. And the reason I said that is because if she sticks to her guidelines for 90 days, then she'll lose way more than those couple of pounds and be way on track and be very sustainable. And she probably won't even want to do it. But that way, like if she then decides she wants to, fine, we can try it. But overall, the reality is if someone sticks to their guidelines for 90 days, 100%, they're going to do great. They're going to be very happy with their progress, and they're not going to want to do that. They're probably going to want to go to maintenance for a little bit just for a little diet break. So usually I'll say like, number one, either earn the right by doing this first, or you know what, try it and you tell me how it goes. And usually with the try it one, they'll be like, well, I mean, do you think it's a good idea? I'll be like, you know what I think. You're asking for my approval, even though you know what I think. So like at this point, if you want to take a break from coaching and go do that, by all means, I think you should. But that's not what my coaching program includes. And I think you should absolutely try anything and everything you want so that you can get the experience. But just know, like, if you do that, I support you, but I'm not going to coach you through it. And that sort of makes them think a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I know something else you talk about too is the fact that a lot of people, when they get started on the journey to getting fit, it's a positive thing, right? They're ready to change their lives. They're going to turn around multiple aspects of their lives. They have more energy, more confidence. They're going to be sexier to their wife or husband. But at some point, and this is something I didn't really think about too much until I read it, was they start questioning, why am I doing this? And they start doubting things, but it's not fun. It sucks. It's like, oh, fuck, I got to get up again and go to the gym, grind out another 45-minute workout that I don't really want to do. And then it becomes a chore and it becomes another stress in an already stressed life. I never really thought about it that way. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, but I never thought, wow, maybe this is just a grind. And, I do believe you have to make it enjoyable. You can't give someone a workout with nothing but burpees and the assault bike if they hate the burpees, an assault bike. You have to make it at least somewhat enjoyable, of course, challenging, but it's kind of a neat way to look at it. And you say you're playing the long game. You have to do something that makes you smile, that makes you happy, but also, is working towards your long-term health and fitness goals.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm not sure 100% what the question is, but like, I think that's absolutely important in terms of if you don't like it, you're going to quit. Like at some point, if it's not making you happier, if you don't like it, then either you're going to quit or you're not really going to do it to the best of your ability. It's like, what's the point of going if you're not really going to give it something, So I have some clients who part of their workout routine that I send them is like one day will be like, today you're playing soccer with your buddies. And like, cause I know they have that scheduled every Tuesday, he's going to go play soccer. But I'm like, that's part of your workout routine. So like, you're going to go play soccer. You're going to do your whole fucking dynamic warm up beforehand because you're not going to let your hamstring get pulled. And if you do, I'll fucking kill you. And literally I'll make them send me a video of them doing like walking Spider-Mans with an overhead reach. So I know that they actually did their warm up before the soccer game. And then for other clients, it's going and doing Zumba, or for other clients, it could be doing like a playground workout because they really want to do that stuff. Whatever it is, you just have to make sure that it incorporates stuff that they like, because sooner or later, they're going to quit. It's sort of like same thing with business. A lot of people end up quitting because not even because it's hard, but just because like they don't like what they're doing and they thought it was going to be very easy. And people think online business equals working at the beach all day. And then they all of a sudden realize not the case, no matter what all the marketers put out there, then they quit. And so you really have to like do what you love.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this real quick. I want to be mindful of your time here. But this is a show for dads, busy dads, and many of them are struggling with the same types of things, right? They want to maybe reclaim what they once had. They want to feel better. They want to look better. They want to move better. And, they're stressed. They have the same excuses of no time. I just can't fit into my busy life. And so what would you personally tell a 40-year-old sedentary dad who sits in an office for 8 hours and drives 2 hours and hasn't done any kind of regular exercise in 10 years, and his diet is the typical American diet of whatever? What would you tell that guy on, this is how you just get started down a better path?
The usual way that I go with it is, first I have to ask, why do they actually want to do this? Like, why are you really interested in doing this? And the answers are always different. Some of them say, I just want to lose a couple pounds. Some of them say the doctor told me that I had to. Some of them say like, I want to be alive to like walk my daughter down the aisle, or like I want to actually be able to play with my kids, whatever. Like there's always different reasons. But what it boils down to at that point in life is that it's not going to be easy starting. And pretending it is bullshitting yourself, and it doesn't do anything. The biggest thing that I can say is getting started is going to suck. It is going to not be fun. It's going to be very uncomfortable and you're not going to like it. And guess what? I don't give a fuck, and neither should you. Because in the same way that you would probably do the same thing to your kids, like, hey, I don't care if you don't want to go to school. I don't give a shit if you don't want to do your homework. I don't care if you don't want to apply to college. I know it's going to suck, but you still have to do it. You should treat yourself the same way that you treat your kids and hold yourself to that standard. And that's just straight up. It doesn't mean you have to go to the gym 7 days a week for an hour a day. It doesn't mean you have to go to the gym 5 days a week or 4 days a week or 3 days a week. It means you should start getting up a little bit and doing a little bit more walking, even if that means like, hey, go on a walk with your kid for 20 minutes 2 times a week or 1 time a week if you're doing nothing at all. But start by doing something. And here's a point that I use. Every day I wake up and the first thing I do is make my bed. And that might not sound like a lot, but making my bed is one of the things I hate most in this world more than anything in the world. I hate making my bed. And the reason I do it is because by starting my day, by doing something that I hate and absolutely don't want to do, I've already accomplished something. Even if I don't do anything else the rest of the day, I've accomplished something. So what I would say, get up every day and start it by doing 5 push-ups or 10 jumping jacks. That's it. And do that every single day. Every day. And there will be days you don't want to. And those are the days it's most important to do it. Because doing it when you don't want to do it is when you really will succeed. And again, it doesn't matter if you want a 6-pack or not. Maybe you just want to lose 20 pounds and like feel better in your clothes and get your blood pressure down. Fine. You just have to realize if you want to put extra years on your life to be with your family more, you're going to have to do shit you don't like. And it's probably going to be worth it. And here's like what I'll end with. No one has ever started working out and regretted it. But everyone who hasn't started working out regrets it down the road. Every single person. And it doesn't have to mean that you have to kill yourself. It just means start moving a little bit more.
Well said. I think I'm going to steal that quote. You're going to see it on my Instagram page in about an hour. One more thing, and we'll make this real quick, but there's a lot of guys that are trying to transition out of their boring desk jobs and they want to pursue their passions, and a lot of times online. What's just something that you would tell someone that wants to get started in online business and be successful? Obviously, you've done extremely well at building a very engaged, loyal audience. You know, that's what people strive for when they're trying to start up a business. What would you tell them?
Be open and be honest and give as much information as you possibly can. A lot of people are like, I don't know what questions to answer. I don't know what content to make. And it's like any question that anybody has, literally the way I come up with my content is very simple. Someone asks me a question, I give them an answer via content. It doesn't matter if they email me a question or text me a question, ask me in person. If like a family member asked me it at Thanksgiving dinner, or if someone asked me in the comment section of one of my posts, someone asked me a question, I make content for it. If I've already made content for it, I'll share it with them. If I haven't, then it's a great excuse to start making it. And it's one of those things where if you're interested in fitness, you see all this stuff all the time and you sort of take for granted the knowledge you have. But at one point, you had all the same questions. And if your family is asking you questions, other people have the same questions. So start off by, it doesn't matter if you've read that article 50,000 times, because guarantee you other people haven't. It's actually funny. I did this for a course that I put together for online coaching, because people always ask, I don't know like what content to make, like what type of content should I make or how to make better content. And I Google searched like how to come up with content or something along those lines. And I got like 5 million something, whatever. And basically I was like, here's the deal. In the same way that there are 5 million articles on how to come up with good content, and you still don't know how to come up with good content, there are 5 million articles on how often should you eat throughout the day, and the reality that frequency doesn't matter, but you think everybody should know it just because you know it. That's not true. Start putting out content that's going to help people, sharing it with your network, your family, your friends, your Facebook, whatever you have, and then it will go. The only reason my business grew is because I started posting on Facebook every day, and then my friends saw it, and my family saw it, and then they would share, and they would share. And over the course of years of doing that multiple times a day, every day, 7 days a week, my business grew. But it only started because I started within my network of people who knew me.
Awesome. So where do you want people to find you online?
It's funny. Every time people ask, I'm not going to pitch you on anything. If you find my stuff and you like it, there's plenty of ways to do stuff along those lines. But Google search Jordan Syatt, JordanSyatt, and you'll find my website. You'll find my Facebook, my Instagram. I'd say Instagram is where I'm most active right now, Syatt Fitness. My YouTube, I'm getting much more active on as well. And those two things are probably the most important.
Okay. Sweet, man. Well, I appreciate your time. It's been a great conversation. And like I said before, I have a lot of respect for you. So thank you so much for your time.
Dude, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And seriously, like, thank you. I mean, it means a lot.
Yep, you bet. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, if you want more information, check out the Fit Dad Basecamp group on Facebook. And don't forget to stop by fitdadnation.com. Until next time, keep kicking ass and taking the next step. You can do this, Dad.